Hey everyone, friends. This is Mozart speaking. Morning overview at the start of a new week. Bitcoin has broken through 105, even $106,000 at least in futures. And yesterday we closed another long position in profit. I didn't wait for the last take. At 104.9990. I closed it a bit earlier, around 103,400. So, if you look at it like this in relation to the price, well, it's not much lower than a small margin. The second half of the long was closed roughly here. Not the whole long, but specifically its second half. So that's another well done. And right now, we have an uninterrupted streak of profitable trades in the trading channel. Well, in Telegram channel, since around September of this year. I only share all these trades in the Telegram channel. They're not on YouTube. If you don't want to miss out, subscribe to my Telegram channel. The link is in the description, right below this video. Technically about Bitcoins, so now we can redraw this white channel. It's basically already visible, based on two peaks, 1, 2, 3. Red is fine. Let's probably remove it already, although there's no rush. Let's remove it for now, so it doesn't get in the way. And here, an obvious target for this movement is emerging, which would be reached as a reference point by the intersection of channels if this growth continues. Here's the nearest intersection, and here's the second one. So the nearest is around $109,000. Well, let's take a range of 108, 110. The most important thing, technically, what should we do? To cover this candle from December 5th, this candle from the Korean dump, when martial law was declared in Korea. Yesterday we didn't cover it, meaning the high of this candle is 104.130, and yesterday's close was 104.460. Let's see how the day closes today. Because if we cover it, then the technical targets open up all the way to the full height of this candle. This candle reaches a height of $118,000 to $120,000, and this is the very forecast, the very analysis that I provided over the last 2 days on the weekend in the Telegram channel. You can read it. So basically the targets are around there. Next, what else is interesting from a technical perspective? So we had a divergence here on the RSI specifically. 1, 2. There was nothing on the MACD. Next, we were dealing with that divergence in a sideways market. The sideways movement was upward, but nevertheless, it was a sideways movement. We were dealing with it for about 20 days. It's quite possible that in those 20 days, it could have been resolved. And now, why wouldn't the price on the MACD draw its own divergence? It could go like this, and then here create a pronounced divergence and give us a correction in Bitcoin of at least around 20%. But we still need to get here to draw that divergence. On top of that, if we look at the volumes on the chart, the visible volumes are decreasing. 1, 2, there will be about 3 here, like this. And the chart is going up, so there's a divergence in the volumes here. But in the current context, that's not so important because we already had a divergence here, a double one like this. And here we dealt with it. Here, the indicators were getting unloaded. And from my experience, I can say that it's quite common to see a situation where, after this unloading, we start a new impulse. So, the volumes can appear quite suddenly here. Well, for example, on Wednesday, depending on whether the circumstances are favorable or unfavorable, from the fresco, here, the volumes can show up and start a new impulse that could go all the way up to around 120,000, for example. Although the intermediate points are visible, 109, 110, 114, 115, and of course, let's take 120, 125, with a margin, and from around 120, drop back down to 20, 25, about 20% drop back down, back to the 100, to test it one more time, and even test the gap by about 30%. This gap here, Trump's defense, in principle, it seems possible, and this will be the most dangerous scenario that we need to be prepared for. There is no smell of it at the moment, but most likely it will be. Together with the Bitcoin, you will need to close the alts when it goes to approximately these marks. For now, that's my plan. Polta, however, they are still in correction, meaning that over the weekend, Bitcoin has been rising almost on its own. You can also see this in Bitcoin's dominance, which has been increasing for the last 4 days, while total 3, by the way, is decreasing today. Well, just a little, but it's going down. For now, we're trading this dump candle from December 9th. Again, from my experience, I can say that such corrections often, much more often, end within this one red candle. This is the weekly time frame. After that, we move further up. So we're moving to break through the targets further. In this case, we're consolidating around the previous ATH. Let's get back to the daily chart. Right now, for total 3, the main thing is not to drop below $1 trillion. We can test the $1 trillion one more time, but we can't settle below it. So purely from a technical standpoint, like this or just straight away like this is the optimal picture and the one I expect the most for altcoins. So $1 trillion can still be tested, that's likely, keep that in mind. Then we could go up, because if the price settles below $1 trillion, we'll also settle below the 30 moving average, below the middle of the Bollinger Bands, which is more of a squeeze, those two lines. And we'll most likely go test the 50 moving average. This usually happens very rarely in such strong bull markets, extremely rarely. And the last time it happened was probably back in 2016 or 2017. But back then, the volatility and liquidity were completely different, not like now. And this is a return to $50, $800, $900 billion. But then there would be too strong of a correction after such a wave of growth. It will be too strong. Although I can't rule out this option, still, under the current conditions, I'm expecting either this with a higher high of this candle. Either one more time at $1 trillion and like this. And if we make a higher high on this candle for altcoins, then the conditions and the way it works will be the same as for Bitcoin. We're going to the height of its body, this candle from December 9th. So roughly around top 26 to $1.3 trillion. And here, most likely, it will be time to take profits, if not all, then a big part of all positions. Well, at least that's what I'll do about dominance. About dominance. What's interesting happening here? The weekly dominance is hanging around the yearly moving average. This yellow moving average is the yearly one. It looks like there's a potential engulfing pattern, but these 3 red weekly candles still suggest that it's more likely to come back at least one more time to retest the yearly moving average. It happens like this quite rarely, and the drop on Monday was really strong. And this is the first strong drop in the indicator since November 2022. This is the weekly time frame, so I'm looking at the point, here's November 22, and here's the current value. Let's see how today's candle, the candle for this week, will close. Because right now there's a struggle going on inside, I would say. Squeeze these moving averages. There will be some consolidation and some kind of move here. Such movements are most likely here. Right now, dominance is just relieving the oversold condition on the weekly, which has dropped to 21% on the RSI. And after relieving this oversold condition, we'll see another move down. Well, from my point of view, anywhere, at least to test these lows, so about 56%, but overall, I'm expecting it to go much lower. Globally, no matter what happens here, no matter what's going on, it's still going there. To 50 to close all these gaps. Bitcoin was rising on its own, and it fell, taking all the money out of the ice. That was about the technicals. And let's take a look at the blockchain. In the blockchain, there's something interesting to mention here. Well, the first thing is the funding, which even on the breakout at $106,000 went to an average of just above 0.016% across all exchanges. That is, the market is still not tied up, and this suggests that, in principle, this movement can easily be continued. And, well, it's not so much that it can easily continue, but if there are corrections from the current levels right now, they're unlikely to be strong. There's no crazy funding happening right now. Of course, you can average it out over at least 6 hours, and it will still be very low, tiny values. And the realized profit from long-term holders is also minimal in this pump on an hourly basis. Today, they realized a profit of $4 million. Let's average it out too, and it's already averaged out for me over 6 hours. A lot more profit was realized at some previous peaks. Several times more. So far, there's nothing significant here. No one is taking profits from this pump in the last few days at all. So these prices aren't interesting to anyone, both for LTH, meaning long-term holders, and for STH, short-term holders. I see, the same thing. They realized a lot more profit earlier. Right now, they're not moving at all. Next, unrealized profit. Among all long-term holders, where we don't exclude any lost bitcoins, Satoshi's bitcoins, we don't really highlight anything. It's confidently moved into the stage of euphoria. So, if we touched it a little on November 22, now it's been moving confidently since December 7th. This blue line, which has changed from green to blue, presents the stage of euphoria. This is the beginning of the euphoria stage, which is when the total profit from the average entry point of all long-term holders counting lost bitcoins, I repeat, forgotten ones and so on, is over 75% of their average entry. If we look at past cycles, for example, the last cycle, the euphoria phase, of course, doesn't end with just one touch. It lasts for a while. So in 2021, for example, the last cycle, the one before that, the same thing. In 2016, 2017, it lasts for a while. This euphoria phase, well, I won't look further. There was a different market there. Those are cycles that are really far back. So basically, this state can last for a while. And we literally entered it, I repeat, around December 5-6. Well, maybe we've been in this phase for about 10 days, when usually it lasts for several months. It's not a fact, I repeat, that this time it will also last for several months. Considering the current market liquidity, it's very high. And getting 75% from the average entry is already really cool, but it still seems a bit low. 10 days, even if we do a regression analysis through this backward sloping line, it can still stretch out for at least a month or even a couple of months. Especially since we just entered it. We went back to the green line during the correction on December 9th, and now it seems like we're moving higher. Next, realized profit, already normally, just for the long-term holders, with a correction for the volatility. With the removal of all forgotten bitcoins, everything is clear here. The maximum profit taking happened on December 5th, during the Korean dump when everyone got scared and took their profits. $5.2 billion have been taken off the market by long-term holders. All right, and now we can basically start identifying divergences like I showed you in previous videos. So the price will be going up, the indicator will show new peaks, but each of them will be lower than the previous one. This will be a divergence and a pullback of 20-30% on Bitcoin. In the end, we'll most likely see it. The same was for short-term holders. It's all the same similar. Also on the 9th, they closed $4.1 billion and locked in their profits. And here too, you can expect a similar picture. They are acting very similarly right now. Both cohorts. What do we have here? This is the total volume of money, so-called positive capital inflows, that has come into crypto over the last 30 days. So it started to decrease a bit because the price went sideways. I showed you that technically, but not by much. So in total, it dropped from $140 billion to $120 billion. But these are the inflows over the last 30 days. You need to understand that every new day we start a new 30-day interval. And probably the most important thing is the amount of staked assets on the exchange. Also, over the last 30 days, they are starting to decrease. So we dropped from about $16 billion as of yesterday to $11.5 billion. But that's over a 30-day window. But still, the total amount of Tether on all exchanges is very high. And it's not really dropping, it's actually growing. They don't burn Tether much, mostly they just print it. And stablecoins are steadily increasing. So right now, there are almost $40 billion in stablecoins on the exchange. This is quite a strong fuel for further growth of altcoins. So you look at March, it was the same here. We reached a peak. The mark was about $19.5 billion in stablecoins. Here, altcoins took a hit, and the amount of stablecoins dropped by about $1.5 billion. And then this drop happened, a downturn. They transferred from stablecoins to altcoins. That's it, and the downturn started. And now we can expect the same thing. They accumulate, and then for a while, they'll flow into the altcoins that haven't taken off yet. And then we'll see some long-term correction. But the time for it hasn't come yet. Even up until Trump's inauguration, everything can still grow. And to be honest, this current week will be telling typically the last 2 weeks of the year, especially in election years, are very, very strong. Absolutely extremely strong. And if this week doesn't let us down, and this week is really important, we've got PMI, ASM, PCE, the Fed, interest rates, everything you can think of is going to be packed in. This week the market will be all over the place, but in the end, if everything closes well, the last 2 weeks will just be a blast. It's just going to be a blast. The main thing is that the data doesn't let us down. And the most important thing, Comrade Pavel, is that we can basically just shoot up like a rocket right up until January 1st. That's it. Everything together and everything taken care of. That's the analysis. Thank you all for your attention. This was Mozart on the line. I'll keep you updated and try to record videos more often during this volatile time. In a similar format, if there's something I don't like, if I decide to take a big position somewhere, I'll definitely let you know. First and foremost, keep an eye on the Telegram channel. Just a reminder, the link is in the description below this video. Thank you all. Have a great week, a great day, and goodbye everyone.